Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, what I wanted to do is demonstrate what I've been able to figure out about the Delirium encounters and a couple of little pointers on where I suggest doing them. Now, I'm running this on the League Start Spellslinger character that I was determined to give it a shot. I'm not that impressed with its performance, and that's why I'm running a reasonably easy zone. I like the foothills for Delirium farming. I don't think it's necessarily the absolute best choice, but it's a pretty good map with a couple... Oh, sorry, not map, Act Zone, with a couple of good divination cards. So the Imperial Legacy drops there, Earth Drinker drops there, and also the useful early league but not valuable Cartographer's Delight drops there as well. So, a quick heads up on how the Delirium encounters work before we go in and demonstrate it, that there'll be a Delirium encounter, the mirror, somewhere near the start of the zone. It's usually a screen and a half away from where you zone in, so often it's not on the minimap when you first zone in. You'll have to do a quick search around and see if you can find it. Once you've found it, when you step through it, it's going to cause the fog to cover the entire zone. After a timer, the fog will start retracting from the origin point. Now, there are two important things with this. The first thing is, any of your teammates that are on the other side of the map are in real trouble if you go through the mirror. The mirror is really badly set up for multiplayer groups that split up. So if you're playing with friends, make sure that you discuss with them when you're going to tap the mirror. Otherwise, you're going to get them killed. Secondly, the further you are from the origin point, and this is based upon the shortest distance that a player with phasing could run, at least that seems to be how it works, the more dangerous the area gets. So the Delirium content will add a bunch of new monsters that get more dangerous the further away from the origin point you get. However, they don't seem to get more rewarding the further you get away. So the key thing you want to do is get the low-hanging fruit, which is the monsters close to the center. There may also be some specific things that are only available when you get miles and miles away. I haven't found them yet. The last thing that's really important, you will know in advance what sort of rewards you're going to get. Most commonly you'll get armor and weapon rewards, which are pretty weak, as they were in Metamorph. Sometimes you'll get medium tier rewards like fossils, and I assume that it's also possible to get really extraordinary rewards. So, let's just jump into the foothills. Now, I picked this zone because you start at one end of it that's, there's a long way to run, but it's also pretty open, which seems to be useful for these zones. There's a bit of divergent opinion on that. So, here's where the mirror is. You'll see it's about a screen and a half away. So let's just start clearing a few monsters, and then we'll go through it quickly. Now, there's a voiceover that will start at this point that you'll hear. Don't yet know who that is. I assume it's the main antagonist of the Delirium content, but they're very, very, very well done. I'm using, I've slightly diverged from my original build. I'm using Val Power Siphon a lot more than I thought I would. In fact, I wasn't intending to use Power Siphon at all, but it just feels like it's working well. So, the further I get from that origin point now, the more dangerous the monsters will get. At this point, it feels like, instead of being in a monster level 62 zone, it feels about as tough as being in maybe a monster 67. And there's a few new abilities that monsters have. Like, this one has Icicle Reef. I don't know what that does. I think it's the skill that looks like Glacial Cascade. One thing that's critical for navigating areas, you need a teleport move skill in this zone, because you kind of need to keep moving. You need to keep working away from the origin point. The timer isn't tight, but it is there. And you'll see I'm about to hit 3 currency rewards. Haven't quite made it yet, but I'll be close. And now, it's probably going to be very difficult in a story zone to get a 4th. It can be done, but I think there's too much over on the right-hand side. Now the fog's retreat is catching up to me. That is a 5-second timer to get the hell back into the fog, otherwise the encounter ends. I'm happy with where I'm at though. I was starting to struggle. I wasn't going to get to 4, and so there's the rewards from that. Now actually, fundamentally the main reward from these zones, while you're leveling, the main reward is going to be the times you get uniques. At endgame, I suspect that the main reward is actually going to be the enormous amount of extra monsters that you get to kill, just by virtue of it putting lots and lots of extra stuff on the map. A bunch of my low-level support gems are leveling up from when I did a bit of a change around of skills recently. Okay, so that should give a bit of a sense as to how this works. Now, one thing that's really important, you'll notice I started the foothills in the middle. I'm going to start a new instance of the foothills. This time I'm going to start it in a better location. I'm going to enter it from the tunnel. Watch what happens here. Now, the Delirium is going to be close to this, or to the entrance point that I used. So it'll be somewhere reasonably close. I think it's usually up where the Vale side area is. Ah, there it is. It's not in the usual place. One of the spots Boulderback sometimes spawns. So, when I've got this, there's now a lot further that I can run in the zone, and that's an important thing to factor in. That the distance, the Pathfinder distance from where I started to the furthest reaches of the zone is larger. I have a clear plan for how I'm going to navigate it. So in terms of zone effects, this means you're going to want to prioritize zones that have predictable layouts. They don't necessarily need to be smooth, they just need to be predictable. I think a map like Alleyways is perfect because you can just... You've got a long way to run from the start to the finish, and there's just lots of monsters around. This is a little pile of eyes on the ground. Some of those will spawn monsters when you walk over them. That's one there, that's a pumpkin patch one. So those are monsters that aren't available to proliferate off immediately, but that you can spawn by stepping on them. Now I'm just going to keep running through here. And now I'm out of the Delirium, so I need to keep moving. I've got my 3 rewards locked in, and now let's see if I can fight for a 4th. Monsters will get tougher and tougher and tougher here, and very, very noticeably so soon, because I'm just getting so far from that origin point. Now, I've got 5 seconds. I think only monsters that are killed whilst they're inside the fog count, so if you're on that 5-second countdown, I don't think they count, so I think I'm stuck at 3. Alright, I narrowly failed to hit 4 there. But that was a lot of fun, trying. Rewards there, pretty mediocre, because that was just the random rewards. It really does amp up, though. If you get something like fossils, you're looking at something pretty good. I believe well, I've seen divination cards once, and while you're leveling, unique items are really good too. So what are the strategic considerations for this? While you're leveling, tap the Mirror of Delirium. If it is a unique item one, or if it's a precious reward, then run with it and try and kill as much as you can. If it's not, then just end it early. And I didn't show that off, but there's a cancel button that appears quite close to the shortcut for the shop there. So that's the way that you can cancel your Delirium once you decide, I'm not going to bother with this one. If, on the flip side, you're running a zone and you get a great reward, then do it. Uniques will be great while you're leveling, not because uniques in general are great, but because there's a chance of getting a tabular. Once you get to endgame, you want to give serious thought to one consideration. Do I want to run a difficult map and underperform in the Delirium? Or do I want to run an easier map and overperform in the Delirium? I don't have the answers on this yet. My gut is saying that if your character is capable of doing tier 12 maps without Delirium encounters, you're probably capable of doing tier 5 maps with them and performing well in those Deliriums. In that context, give the tier 5s a go and go nuts on the Delirium. Try and get the boss killed while you're in the Delirium and see how that works. I feel that will actually be more lucrative than doing tier 12 maps, except maybe on day 1, day 2, day 3 of the league. Day 1's over, but day 2 and 3 are still here, and there's a lot of demand for low-level crafting bases and the like. Otherwise, your key thing is going to be layouts. You want maps where the start of the map is in a predictable place, and is also in a sort of isolated corner. And that's where I show how Foothills, entering it from the top left or from the bottom is really good. Entering it from the waypoint in the middle is much more limited. You'll see that when I entered from the waypoint in the middle, I got three. I sort of got 3 rewards only just, whereas I almost got 4 this time. Lastly, the XP from these encounters seems to be really significant. I don't have any hard numbers on it, but it feels like you just get absolute massive amounts of XP. You have seen how much I got in this zone, and I'm 7 levels over the zone, so that's considerable. Anyways, if you've got any comments or questions, fire away. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there and record a separate video on the disappointment, but the fun disappointment that is the Glacial Cascade Spell Singer.